Hi, today's impactful guest is Katie Desmond, and I am so honored to have her on the pod today. She's a Gen Z leader doing a lot of interesting creative work in the big city, and let's get into it. So, Katie, what is your moment of impact?
So my impact is being a voice for Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and just really kind of sharing my story about how difficult it was to find a job post grad and my journey being in New York and my parents taking a chance on me and kind of where I am today.
I love it. I'm so honored that you're going to join with us in this conversation because there's so many young people right now who are really struggling in this job market. It used to be that college graduates were insulated from unemployment and it really hit older workers. But now what we're seeing is we have federal layoffs and we have state layoffs and we have AI displacing a lot of jobs that were traditionally available to young people. So let's get into it. So tell us where you are now and what your job is currently.
Yeah, I'm living in New York City. I've been here for almost 2 years in February, and I'm working in the advertising industry, and I'm working at a small production company called Hecho, and I am a brand manager. So basically in the account services. So I help be the point of contact for clients for the agency and basically making sure everything goes smoothly among the creatives, the strategists, everyone at the agency.
Amazing. It sounds really creative. What do you love about your job?
I would say what I love most is just being around such creative people and being involved in such creative work that's making an impact among the world, among people, and just, yeah, working with incredible people, I would say is my favorite part of my job.
Amazing. And how do you love being in the city?
I love it so much. It's such just a great place to be in your 20s. I mean, it's you're just surrounded by such talented, interesting people and a lot of culture here. Like I just feel as though the energy is unmatched and especially in this early part of my career, like I always just trying to strive to do my best and being around people like that, it's just the best place to be.
Well said. Excellent. I do love New York City. So, Katie and I put our heads together the other night. We were planning this episode for y'all, and we thought it would be fun to do sort of like a 1-2 punch where she's going to share her tips on how she managed to land this amazing creative job that she just described in this incredibly challenging job market. And then I'm going to kind of come in with some tips and tricks from my day job, which has been over 25 years helping 500 plus people find the career where they can make the impact they care about. So, Katie, let's start out with, let's start out with landing your current job, and then maybe we're going to go reverse chrono and talk about some of your earlier contractor roles. I think there's kind of 5 steps to finding a job, right? There's figuring out what you want to do, figuring out what are your digital keywords that are going to describe your skills and that are going to beat the bots in the algorithms, right?
Yeah.
Embedding them in your resume, applying online, and then really the fifth is something you're exceptional at. And I'm really excited for you to share your perspective with the listeners and viewers. And that is networking and following up to land the job and not just letting your online application do the work for you. So let's start at the beginning. Let's start with how did you identify what you wanted to pursue?
So I'm not 100% sure still what I want to do, but I knew I wanted to be in a creative field. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of earlier in my internships, I started in PR and I loved aspects of it, but I still wanted to be surrounded by that super creative work. And advertising was something that I'd always just been super interested in, but like no opportunities really presented itself. And most of the jobs I was applying to were in PR, working brand side in their communications or media teams, whatnot. So when I was just like online applying, I applied to this account manager role where I'm working today. And I don't know, I was just really excited when I met the team and I went into the office and just the environment was amazing, and I'm just thrilled at where I am right now.
I think that's such an important point, that it's a couple of things I want to underscore in what Katie just shared, that, sometimes it's hard as a young person to figure out what you want to do because you've never really had the opportunity to try it, right? And it's the old chicken and the egg, where people are like, well, I want to hire you if you've already done something. And you're like, well, give me a chance to do it. And so you really prevailed on that. And also, you're talking about how it just felt right. Like when you met the team and you learned more about your current agency, you just felt like an alignment, right?
Yeah, 100%. And they knew going into this, they knew that I had no experience working in advertising, and it's completely different than PR. Yes, it's an account management role, and I worked in account management at a PR agency, but the content and work itself is very different. PR agency, my day-to-day, I was, pitching to journalists, reporters, that kind of stuff, and doing media audits and a lot of like strategic work. And with the ad agency, I'm working on producing asset rollouts for Instagram ads, web ads, pop-ups, kind of that type of work. And I'm also working on full-blown like campaigns, like going through production, going through the storyboarding and animatics. So that's really, really very different, but kind of like the same ideas, where I'm kind of managing the day-to-day, but the content itself is completely different. But they knew I had experience working in financial services previously, and I'm working on a financial services account at the moment. And they were like, we love her energy. She's going to match the vibe of the agency, and she's willing to put in the work to really learn how to do everything. And I am month 3 or 90 days in, and it's definitely like, it's going to take a while to learn even more, but I am just loving it so much.
Well, that's great. Mic drop, because that really shows your versatility, Katie, and your energy. And you really do have such a special energy. That's why I'm so thrilled you're talking with us today. You have a contagious enthusiasm, and you're just really a supportive person, and you're a fast learner. So for everyone out there that's getting discouraged, here's an example of someone who didn't have really direct experience but got hired on potential. Okay, she built a story about potential, and she demonstrated her potential in the other roles that she had. And so they could see her energy, they could see her potential. And really, when you're being hired to figure out a job. So you don't have to have done all the things. And as a young person, a couple years out of college, how could you have done all the things, right? Like, Katie, what year did you graduate from UNC?
2023.
Okay, so recent, super recent college grad. Okay, and I think the other thing that I would add for people out there who are trying to figure out what you want to do, Katie had a few things that she was looking at in parallel. Okay. And then she saw this opportunity, she got traction, and she moved ahead. It was a culture fit, and boom, she's there. But for those of you that want some more resources, check out 16personalities.com, which is a gamified version of the Myers-Briggs type indicator. And clients, whenever they do it, they're like, oh my God, it's like they know me. It's like they're describing my whole personality. And it's free. And it's an interesting way to get some feedback about your skills and your preferences. The other thing is, I love the work by the OG StrengthsFinder person, Donald O. Clifton. And there's the Clifton StrengthsFinder. There's a free and paid version of that. The free one will get you very far. And then Marcus Buckingham has picked up the baton from Donald Clifton and has created the StrengthsFinder 2.0. You can find on the web. It's free, and it's really helpful. So, Katie, let's go to step 2, which would be thinking about keywords. Ta-da!
Yes. The magic keywords.
The magic keywords. So How did you think about keyword matching? So we have really, it's even more so with ChatGPT. Even before that, everything was algorithmic based, where hiring managers had laden job descriptions with digital keywords that are like skills, like problem solving, Scrum certification, agile team leader, and things like this. And then the algorithm is looking on resumes and data scraping for these digital keywords and trying to find like a 72% match or higher. So when you were tackling these applications, like you applied for this account manager role that you now hold, how did you think about keywords?
Yeah, well, I even remember when we were working together, what, fall of 2022. This was way before, I mean, ChatGPT, I don't know when it was introduced in November, you said. Clearly, I had no idea what it was. I was, doing all my resume work by, not hand, but you know what I mean, just doing it not the fast way. And I remember you had a platform, and I can't remember what it's called, but
Job scan.
Job Scan. Yes. I remember Job Scan was great. And I used that for a while, and it helped with keywords. And you kind of just basically, my strategy was looking at your experience and looking at the job, like just try to enhance what you've done that aligns with, you know, the job description. Like, you don't want to lie in your resume. Like, that's clearly not gonna be helpful if you were to get hired for the job and you're like, oh my God, what's happening? Finding the keywords that align with what you've done or like somewhat align, and really try to enhance that. And I use ChatGPT a lot to kind of, tell it like, how can I enhance my resume to make it a 100% match? And it would basically like retype all of my bullets to align with the job, but not in a way where I'm flat out lying of what I've done. So if there were, key metrics like involving those, or just specific, maybe I was leaving out specific parts of my job that could align with the job description. So honestly, keywords were really, really important, but I found, and I'm sure this is going to be another bullet point eventually, the last one, networking, but keywords along with reaching out to someone, if your resume really matches it and then you find a person at the company, like that's like your gold.
Totally, your gold. And really, they go hand in glove, right? You need the keywords to beat the algorithm, and then beating the algorithm's not enough. You need the human at the company to pull you in, right?
Exactly, because beating the algorithm, like you can, but it's not a huge probability, because if you
Right,
think about it, there are like on LinkedIn, there's thousands of people applying to jobs now.
right.
I would get so discouraged if I saw a job at a company that I was so, so excited about. Like, for instance, I applied to a job at Paramount, and I was so excited about it. It was on their partnerships team. And I matched my resume to align with the job description, and I reached out to someone who worked directly on the team, and they put me in contact with the hiring manager, or not hiring manager, HR. But what was interesting was kind of how we were talking about potential, and you may not fully align with the job description. Like, it was a manager role, like 3 to 5 years experience, and I was entry level. And he was saying that, yes, like I didn't have all of, the experience and the skills that they needed, but he saw the potential. Like the amount, like the campaigns that I had worked on to date were super impressive. So he was like, I had to talk to this girl, along with, the connections and networking. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm really glad you gave that example that people can see how networking works, right? It's the crucial step. You can't just file the application and be like, well, I had a 92% keyword match. I'm good to go, done and dusted. You got to do exactly what Katie described, which Katie is, of all my young clients, Katie is exceptional at this. She's an unbelievably smart, discerning relationship builder. She manages upward really well. And she creates these trusted reciprocal relationships. And even in the way she does networking, she's so effective. So that's step 5, and we're really going to go deep there. But let's just talk for a second about I just want to say one thing about JobScan before we go to step 3. So this is not a paid endorsement yet, although JobScan, DM me. And ChatGPT, you can really crush it. I have so many clients really
Yeah, I would say honestly,
effectively
yeah.
leveraging all of this skills work through ChatGPT. But there's one feature of JobScan that I really do love, which is there's a side-by-side comparison feature. So let's say you've used your chat models and you kind of got it baked in. Before you upload it to the application site, you can upload it to JobScan. You upload your resume, digital resume, you upload digital job description, you hit analyze, and immediately comes back keyword by keyword and tells you what your percentage match is, and then gives you really easy, simple tactics to improve your keyword match so you can beat the bots, beat the algorithm, and have a higher chance of being surfaced. Although Katie's point is so true that it's hyper competitive and this is necessary but not sufficient. But you
Yeah.
can use that job scan information. It'll say, you really talked a lot about your analytics. You talked a lot about your leadership. I'd like to see more about your communication skills. And then you go back, work with your chat model, bake in some more about your communication skills, run it through again. Now you've got a higher percentage match. So I like the iterative feature of it. And the other thing I'll say is that it has 400 free resume templates that are ATS compliant. ATS means applicant tracking system, which is a fancy description for an online portal. So let's go to step 3, which is embedding these in your resume. We've already kind of talked about it. Do you have anything else to add, or should we fly to step 4?
I think embedding them into your resume, like I would say some people would think that listing them out like strengths
Yeah.
just at the top of your resume is enough, but I think that they really want to see like how you've done those and like what's the impact. You know what I mean? Like what's the result? Instead of just listing out, oh, I've done X, Y, and Z, like what did you do and how did you contribute? So, yeah.
I love that. So it's not just like getting the words in, it's how are
Yeah.
you deploying the words? What's the context? And wherever you can say how you created any kind of impact, it can be qualitative. Maybe there's not a quantitative metric, like maybe sales didn't go up 15%, but you can talk about how your work improved customer satisfaction or reduced time to booking or some kind of quantifiable or qualitative measure. And really, as Katie says, how did you use the skill to create value, to create
Exactly.
impact? Yeah.
Value is the keyword in that one.
Value is the keyword in that one. Okay, you heard it. And
Because you can list out as many strengths, skills, any keyword that is in the job description, but if you don't show how you brought value to the team or how you improved a campaign or how you improved sales, it means nothing. I mean, if I were looking at a resume and it was just a list of skills, like, but how did you implement those in your work or your day-to-day?
Great. That's such great advice. You were bringing the fire today, Katie Desmond. Okay, so step 4 would be applying for the jobs. So applying in the portal, sometimes you're applying in websites, sometimes you're applying on job aggregators. Any thoughts about applying, and how did you kind of manage the sea of applications? Did you have like a tracking system? Talk to us a little bit about how you approached applying. Did you go in fits and spurts? Like what was your strategy?
The number one thing that I had been told was do not apply on LinkedIn because you're just going to get lost. Like if ever I saw a job that I was like, this is my dream job, dream company, or just something that I was super interested in, I would always go to the company website just because LinkedIn, if you think about all the bots, like you don't want to get lost in that. You want to go straight to the website and apply through there. Easy apply, like I wouldn't even bother. Like it's also filled with bots, and also it's just, I don't know, you want to put a little bit more effort into your application. But I would say yes, definitely apply on the website. My job, I applied on their website. Um, and then in terms of like tracking, like I had an Excel sheet of just kind of where I applied, what the status was, if I had connected with anyone, how I connected with them, if they responded. It's really hard to keep track because I can tell you that I have, since graduating from college, so in 2023, I have applied to over 2,000 jobs. Like that's a lot. It's a lot. So it is hard to keep track of. And I would say I definitely started being more intentional about where I was applying this most recent round of applications back when I was looking for a job in May or March. So yeah, I would definitely say be intentional too about where you're applying. It's not the quantity, it's the quality of the application and who you know, where you're applying and who you're connecting with and how your application shows up.
Absolutely. These are great points. And I think it's so relatable about the 2000 applications. Most young people, by the time they get to me, they have a very similar story. And, 1,500 of those 2000, they didn't want to do that job. It wasn't a fit. They were just so desperate.
No,
They were so
no.
desperate. They're like, I just need to have someone invite me to an interview. I don't care if it's, something that I'm never going to do. Right. But what you're really talking about is being intentional and thinking about how do I demonstrate potential for this role? What are the things that I've done that are somewhat relatable or somewhat transferable to this role? So, for example, you talked about you have a financial services client right now. They were attracted to the fact that you have had financial service clients in the past, and you could talk about campaigns that you've worked on in the past for those financial service clients. So
Yeah.
that's an example of Katie being super intentional. I also want to emphasize your point about applying on the website. This is really smart. So Google is scraping websites and posting jobs, and a lot of these aggregators are, and you want to go to the original employer and apply there because it's a higher integrity that they're going to get your application. And a lot of the Google jobs are either not real jobs, they're scraped from a while ago, they're they're cyber remnants, and there's no job there. So you don't want to
Yeah.
waste your time either. You want to go back to the website and verify that this role is actually staffed, open. There's a real hiring manager. There's a real salary attached to this thing. There's a real there. And just one last point on LinkedIn. I agree with Katie's advice about apply on the employer site, not LinkedIn, but there is a really interesting thing you can do on LinkedIn, which is you can go and use the advanced search and pull up the job that you're interested in. And you can see some really quick analytics. These analytics are based on LinkedIn's algorithms analyzing what's in your profile versus other people's LinkedIn profile that have applied, and the job description. So if you don't see very favorable analytics, don't sweat it. Maybe you haven't put a lot of your stuff in your LinkedIn profile. Your LinkedIn profile maybe doesn't accurately represent what you've done. But it does tell you things like, you mentioned leadership once. The other candidates who are 2 to 5 years out of college mentioned leadership on average 11 times. Like, it tells you little tips and tricks, very similar to what Katie and I were mentioning about JobScan earlier. So that is one interesting use of LinkedIn to help you with this iteration. Okay, so let's go to where you really shine and you have so many good stories, which is networking and following up. Talk to us about your approach to networking.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like a multi-layered one, but ultimately, when I graduated, that's kind of like first started just like randomly applying to jobs, and I was like, this is not working at all. I was living at home with my parents. I was getting really discouraged because I'm like, I live in North Carolina. I want to move to New York City, and I'm just randomly applying to jobs online. I'm not getting any interviews. And so I kind of just reached out to so many different people that I knew that had contacts in New York. I was really open to any industry at that point. My aunt helped me so much. She had friends that had worked at multiple different agencies. Wonderman Thompson, I think, was one of them. I talked to one of her close friends, Ogilvy, just a bunch of different agencies, just trying to like get information about what their day to day was, what their whole career trajectory was, like what their journey was. And so I kind of started out there, and then ultimately my parents let me move to New York without a job, which was just, I was not expecting that at all. I had to basically pitch. I made a whole presentation to them, and I'm like, it's basically like an investment, and me getting a job is your return in investment. So they let me move, and then that's when I started to hardcore um, network, and just through people that I knew. And then also this time around when I was applying to jobs, I was really, with the jobs that I really, really wanted, I was contacting multiple people there. And the one thing that I had been told when I was networking with just everyone, and they just said to reach out to people that are closer, either, like junior or mid-level employees at the company you want to work for. It doesn't have to be in the direct department. If it is, that's even better. But they're more willing to talk to you than someone who's super high up and probably won't see your email. I mean, you never know. You hear these crazy stories about people sending letters to CEOs and they end up getting an internship or a job. But yeah, that's kind of like one of the biggest pieces of advice, because 9 times out of 10, those people did respond because they understood what I was going through. And sometimes I didn't actually talk to them. They would just pass my resume along or give me someone's email. And then I ended up getting responses through there and interviews. But yeah, networking is so important because you're going to meet people throughout your life, and it's important to have those people in your corner and like just continuing to foster those relationships, because you never know what opportunity is going to pop up later down the line, and just trying to keep those line of communication open. I still talk to everyone that I've networked with today, really, honestly.
It's not the way you approach it, Katie, is your whole, vibe, your energy, which is what your current employer really saw in you. And that is your relationship building energy. It's not transactional. It's not like, hey, person that graduated from college 3 years ago, can you just forward my resume? And you're trying to build a relationship with them where ultimately maybe it can be reciprocal. Like at some point you'll have something that you can help them with, or you'll help the next person coming along. So I think that's really great. And also, it's never time wasted, because even if the person can't refer you, you're still learning more about the advertising industry. In your case, you're learning about these other companies, Ogilvy and whatever the other one is, and you're hearing how the jobs are described, what's their vernacular, what's current, what's happening. And so these types of informational interviews where you're hearing people's career stories is really going to be successful to help you map out your own career.
Yeah, and I will say one thing that I've noticed and I've had people tell me is like, you never want to message someone and basically ask them for something. People love to talk about themselves, so really kind of frame it as like, I want to learn from you. People love to tell their stories and talk about their career. So if you frame it like that, I definitely think that people would be more willing to chat with you, for sure.
Yeah,
Another thing is just when I moved here, and most recently I joined a mentorship program.
great.
It was through Diana Cohen. She owns Crown Affair, and she had this program called the Seedling program, and it's basically for people who are early in their career, people who are way late in their career and wanting to either switch positions or look at a new industry. And so I applied and I got in, and it was like a 6 to 8 week program, and you were assigned to a mentor who was either wanting to be or who was in the same industry as you, or had worked in a specific field that you wanted to work in. And so I had a mentor for 6 to 8 weeks, and it was really great because we chatted about all things career, life, just everything. And it was great to be able to meet new people, and you have weekly check-ins on Zoom. And so there was about 100 people in the program, and it was just really cool. Like any sort of opportunity where you're able to meet people in industries that you're interested in a position you're interested in, it's always a great idea to get involved as much as you can, because networking is never going to go away. It's not like, oh, you get your job and then you're done. Like networking is for the rest of your life, and these relationships are super important, especially when you're trying to build your career.
Absolutely. The relationships are the foundation, and you'll see people weave back into your career like, a decade hence, right? And it's just you kept the relationship going, and it's reciprocal. So I think that's such great advice. The other thing I would say, just to put a footnote on what Katie already said, whenever you reach out to someone, please always attach your resume in a PDF format, because if they're pressed for time, like maybe they have a big project deadline or a quarter ending and they have to get some financial numbers, they want to do something to help. Like people love to be helpful. So maybe if they can't meet with you right now, they'll be like, hey, I'll meet with you in 8 weeks, but I can forward your resume to Joe, who's the hiring manager. So I don't think it's pushy. I don't think it's forward. I think it makes it easier to give them a simple way to help you. So think about that.
That's a very good point that I forgot. Always attach your resume, just so they have it, because they're, if you don't attach it, then you kind of screw yourself over.
I just want to say to Gen Z and any Gen out there, I have a lot of clients right now who their models are really leveraging their job search so effectively. So I don't have to do the basic blocking and tackling with them. We can stay in the high level strategy, strategic guidance, and advisory stuff, because their models are not just coming up with their skills, but coming up with ways of describing how their skills made the impact, because they're feeding their resumes in, they're feeding the job descriptions in, and the models are suggesting back to them ways to describe how their skills provide impact. So I also really love the career site Teal, Teal. So it's like tealhq.com. That's also a really good one. Okay, let's go to something that's very unique about you, Katie, which is you talked about your parents took a bet on you, decided you were a high ROI potential asset, and that you would find a job and find your way in New York, which you did, and in a high ROI way. So you also were willing to take contractor roles instead of permanent roles. And there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and just frankly, confusion out there about contractor roles. So can you share with us a little bit about how you got your start in New York City, and what were these jobs like? Were they part-time or full-time? What were you doing? And did they feel like real jobs?
Yeah, 100%. So when I moved to New York in February of 2024, I kind of hit the ground running. And my friend had told me about this small boutique PR agency called Krupa Consulting, and I am very into wellness and cool startup CPG brands. So I had been following them for a while, and once I moved to New York, I saw that they posted that they needed a part-time intern, and I applied. And I loved their application because they were asking me like what I'm passionate about, like why I love wellness and specific brands that I'm excited about. So it was a really unique application. It was through their website. So But yeah, so I started there and it was part-time. And I worked there for about 6 months and it was so fun. It was like just an experience for me to kind of dip my toes into the agency life, and it was very small. It was about 12 people, and just kind of learning the ins and outs of the PR industry. And it was so fun to work with founders, with these smaller brands. So just kind of hearing about their mission, their impact, and kind of why they created the products that they made. Was so fun and I loved it. And the people that I worked with were so great. And ultimately, that internship kind of, you know, ended and they were not in a position to hire. So that role just completely kind of found its way into my next role. And I was interning at a very big PR agency for about 7 months, working on some pretty big, high profile clients and working on some really fun campaigns. And like that was where it was the full agency experience that I was definitely kind of thrown into the deep end and had to kind of find my way. But it really made me realize how exciting the agency life can be. But ultimately, I loved the smaller environment. So where I am today, I'm at a really small agency and I know everyone I work with really well and I work with them every day. Whereas working at a bigger agency, there was 200 employees and I didn't know everyone and there was so many different clients, which is also amazing to just be exposed to that type of work and to kind of see what everyone's working on. But ultimately, I just knew that I thrived in an environment where, there's less than 50 employees because you're really valued as an employee. Like your work isn't overlooked, it's celebrated, and you're all working together really closely and I love it so much. Like the people I work with are amazing. Um, but yeah, don't what's the saying? Don't knock it till you try it with the contract roles. Is that the saying?
That is the saying, and well
Yes.
said. And I just want to underscore, you were there and you didn't have a job and you were open. And so while you were looking for permanent jobs, you were open to contractor roles. It wasn't one or the other, right? You just had widened the aperture of your search to include them. And y'all, it's so much easier to get a contractor role than a full-time role, especially in this crazy, insane job market. Right now, we have the unemployment rate for Black women is 7.3%. The unemployment rate overall is 4.4%. In 2024, there were 2 million jobs added, and it was already considered a tough job market. And in 2025, obviously, you've heard there's some friction in the quality of the BLS statistics reporting on the labor market, but there were no more than 584,000 jobs added compared to 2 million the year before. So it's a really challenging market. And Katie worked on really cool stuff. She worked on the Cowboy Carter tour. She worked with financial services clients, all kinds of really fascinating clients during this interim. So she has a portfolio of skills, of experiences, huge globally known campaigns that she had a role in as a contractor. And sometimes they're part-time, but sometimes they're full-time. Yeah, you don't have benefits, but you can maybe negotiate your wage, probably not as a young person, but for the more senior people listening to this podcast, you can probably negotiate a higher contract rate where you're trying to cover your out-of-pocket costs for your benefits. And the great news is they often lead to full-time jobs, where the company is like, oh, having person XYZ as a contractor, great, I can take a flyer on them. I'm capping my exposure of trying them out at 9 months. And then if they're a super performer and they really jam with my whole team, I can bring them on as a permanent full-time hire. So Write this down. This is the most important sentence that you can say. If you are looking for a full-time, permanent, or a contractor role, say, while I would prefer a full-time, permanent role, I am open to full-time or part-time contractor or project roles. And let's bust the myth. We're busting it with a lot of fringe. Let's bust the myth that by saying that, you're talking yourself out of a permanent role. No, it doesn't work that way. You're just accelerating your chance of getting in there and having them give you a try. You're not talking them out of, they otherwise would have given you a permanent role. These things are not trade-offs.
Yeah,
All right.
especially like within the marketing and creative space, like freelancing is so normal. Like I have met just within my 3 months of working where I work now, like I've met so many amazing and talented freelancers. And, you know, if you contribute and make amazing work, like these companies are going to remember. And like you never know, you could be pulled onto another project and they may hire you full time, as you said. Like freelancing is a great opportunity, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And these fractional websites are great. So while you're keeping, your foot on the gas for those permanent roles, check out the fractional ones. So for example, if you're in marketing, I love, this is not a paid endorsement, I just love them, Marketer for Hire. They have senior people, they have CMOs on there that want fractional roles all the way down the experience set. So those fractional sites are also a really good place to hang out. Okay, so Katie, can we go back to Chapel Hill, North Carolina,
Yeah.
before 2022? When you first spoke to me, I was like, oh, this woman is so dynamic, so personable, such a leader, such a bright light, so smart. And also, you had done all the things before I ever met you. You had internships. Talk to us about the internships you had while doing your undergraduate course of study, because I think it's really important for younger people or parents of younger people to hear how valuable these internships were. So can you go there for a sec?
Yeah, so my sophomore year at Chapel Hill, COVID hit. So that kind of threw a wrench in a lot of things. And so typically your sophomore and the summers of your sophomore and your junior year, you have internships and that's where you gain your hands-on experience within fields that you're interested in. And so COVID definitely threw a wrench into my plans, but ultimately my second semester of my junior year, I was able to get an internship at a small healthcare startup. And I randomly applied on, I think it was Glassdoor, Indeed. And I remember I was on Christmas break and I had gotten an email asking for an interview. And I was so excited because I was like, I'm in my junior year of college and I need experience because I felt like, my peers had more experience than me and I really needed to kind of get on it. Summer going into my senior year, I interned at a brand new healthcare startup, and they had launched in May or they launched in April and I had joined in June. And so there I was basically hired on as a kind of business development intern, but they realized that I had a lot of skills in shooting content and editing because that was my major. I majored in media and production, so a lot of film and editing and all that fun creative work. And so I interned for them and I basically led all of their content production and I was storyboarding. I was meeting with clients to kind of understand how they wanted their business to show up on this app. And basically, I shot, edited everything, and it was going on Instagram and this healthcare startup app. And it was honestly an amazing experience. Like, I loved it so much. I grew up working on iMovie and just like having fun as a kid, just making movies and being silly. And so, being able to apply in my major to this internship that I was working at was amazing. And it was so fun. And basically, I had like kind of more experience in the content and social world, so that was cool. And yeah, so like I feel like being able to try multiple things is always good because you never know. Like if you're not interested in one thing, you just move on to the next. And that's kind of what I was doing. But I feel like as an intern, it was really cool to be able to have that much, what's the word I'm looking for? Being an intern and having that much, or being an intern and being super involved in the work that they were producing was great. And I was super valued. Like they were like, you're an asset. Like we don't know how to run this camera. We don't know how to use Adobe Premiere Pro, and you do. And so that was great. So like I was signed on as business development, and I ended up being a content intern. So
Those are such great stories, and they really uniquely positioned you because then when you were going, anticipating graduation, looking at that full-time search, you were not in a position that some students find themselves in where they can only talk about their coursework and their aspirations. No, no, no. You were in a much more solid foundation. You had a solid foundation, and you could talk about experiences that you had, things that you did, projects that you did. You could point to a portfolio of work and the impact you had. And because they were small companies, you had an outsized impact as an intern. So when people come to me, usually it's parents and their kids are going off to college, I say, just tell them, even as a freshman, in fact, there's a video on this in my YouTube channel, check it out. Say these 3 words to them: internships, internships, and internships. Because you want to be able to talk about work that you have done as an intern while an undergraduate in your summer, or ideally in your summer through your school year at a reduced cadence, so that you can demonstrate to the employer, yeah, I haven't worked in your exact industry or your exact firm, but look at all these things I did over here that are transferable and relatable to what you're asking me about. And it breaks you out of the pack. So the fact that Katie did those was such a credit to her. And you also hear her say that it helped her realize, oh, I like small firms. I like this kind of work. I'm glad I have this major. I love applying what I studied to practical client situations. So it was very affirming of her study, and it helped her feel affirmed about her career direction. And you also heard her say about those contractor roles, contrasting the small company with the huge company. She realized that she has a preference for these small teams where she knows everybody and they're constantly in communication, right? Anything else you want to add to that?
yeah, I would say just like the smaller companies, like you're able to kind of like you have more autonomy and like you're able to get involved in more things. Like working at a smaller agency, I can raise my hand and be like, hey, I want to get involved in a new business pitch. Like at a larger agency, there's teams dedicated to that. Whereas at a smaller agency, they can pull really anyone into that. And that's a really exciting aspect. And also, if I wanted to work or support someone else on the team with a different client, as long as there's no, conflicting interests with a client you're working on, like that could be a really cool opportunity too. So it's just kind of obviously preference if people prefer to be at a larger company, but here, like I love being a part of a small team because you're with them every day, like you see them every day, and being able to kind of have your hands in a bunch of different things.
I love it. So, what advice would you share with Gen Z and others who are struggling in this job market about the social and emotional toll it can take on people looking for a job?
Oh my God, that's such a, tough question because it's really hard to not let that get to you. I think that don't apply to jobs all day, every day. Like allot yourself 2 to 3 hours a day to do what you got to do and make those applications the best applications that you can, make them very intentional, and then have other outlets. Like exercising has always been a huge part of my life, but since moving to New York and when I was unemployed for 6 months, I really focused on my fitness and I got into the best shape that I have ever been in. And it honestly, like, it helped my mind, body, soul, and it honestly, I feel like boosted my confidence and in my work and just the way that I present myself. So just having an outlet, whether it's exercising, I don't know, reading, like just going out with friends, being social, don't make it like your whole life because it consumed me for a long time and it only made my anxiety worse. And you don't want it to do that because then you get into the interviews, then you're just even more anxious. And I know it can be tough, but just having an outlet is really important and having a good support system behind you as well. But also like another thing is just my parents always told me, they're like, you're so close-minded. And I was close-minded for a while because I was only looking at specific industries and specific roles. And once I started to kind of like open my mind and realize, okay, this isn't working. And like, I need to be more open minded. Like, I'm not going to get my dream job off the bat. Like, I have to work for it. I think that that kind of helped me a lot too, because it opened more doors.
That's so well said.
So, yeah, that is definitely a huge one. And I think this second time around where I finally landed my full-time job, like, I don't know, I just kind of I was open to a lot more things that I probably would have never been. But yeah, that's a huge one. It's a huge tip that I would definitely give. Don't be closed-minded. Just every opportunity is a good opportunity. It may not be your dream job or dream internship, but take the experience. It's important because that's ultimately what they're looking for. So.
Yeah, just to come in on that and echo what you said, Katie, like every opportunity is a growth opportunity. And what you want early in your career is, like she said earlier, just try a lot of things. That's how you figure out what really resonates with you and what doesn't, which is equally important. And then you can nudge your trajectory over time more in the direction of the things you love. But it's so important to be open and experiment and just get out there and try some things. And what you're doing now, it's not part of your identity. It's not where you're going to end up. It's just something that you're doing to add some value right now and contribute. So depressurize it too. And I think the other thing I'll say, just to button this up, is make sure that you are spending time with your family and friends and tell them how to support you. So I'm a mom. I have 3 grown sons. So it's really important for me when my sons are in job transition, especially because of what my day job is, double hazard, not to say like, are you getting interviews? How's it going? You know, like I don't need to bring up the job search. They have it fully covered. And so, you know, tell those people in your support system, hey, when I'm with you, I just want to relax. I'm working hard on this, and I'll let you know when I have an update, you know? And the other thing that Katie mentioned earlier, she joined this networking group and she got a mentor. And that is such a positive thing to do. If you can't find a mentor, just even being in some kind of a structured group, maybe your town has one, maybe your library has one, maybe your Chamber of Commerce has one. There's a ton of online groups where you can see that other talented, smart people are going through the same thing. They're getting the rejection, they're having to start anew. It's really a really important thing. And the last thing is just to echo what Katie said, which is such great advice. Don't make this your 24/7 life. Just work on it. If you can, volunteer somewhere. And then when you come back to your job, you'll be more efficient. But do some fun things, live your life. You're going to get a job. It's going to work out.
Yeah, 1000%, because there was a point where I definitely made it my job 24/7 and I was stressed out because my parents gave me a timeline. I had 6 months to find a job. And I thought that, you know, looking at LinkedIn 24/7 was going to make me feel better, but it only made me more anxious. And there's only so many jobs that get posted a day. And honestly, getting out there, like meeting people out, like going to dinner, like sitting, I don't want to like encourage drinking, but going to sit at a bar, you never know who you're going to meet or someone who knows someone. Like,
Right.
getting out there and meeting people is super important too. So don't
Excellent.
make LinkedIn your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I guess I might have last two questions. So, what are you looking forward to in 2026? What are you excited about your role, living in the city? What's going to be fun for you?
Yeah, I'm just really looking forward to basically the agency I was working at just merged with Echo, this agency I'll be working with moving forward. And we've got some really fun clients that we're working with. So being a part of those projects, I'm super excited. And just like the creatives that we work with are amazing and they're so good at what they do. So I'm really excited about the awesome work that we're going to be creating in 2026. And I think 2026 is like the year that I'm putting myself first and just kind of like saying yes. Like me and my friends have talked about how 2026 is like the year of the YOLO, like just kind of like live your life. Like, I don't know, just like get out there, have fun. Like I'm only 20, almost 26 once in New York City. Like just making time for friends, meeting new people, just being my fun, authentic self. Like that's what I want 2026 to embody. And apparently it's the year of the horse, and horse is my favorite animal. I grew up riding horses, so I feel like it's meant to be. And Tauruses are like, it's the year of like Tauruses going out of Uranus, I don't know how they pronounce it, but they've been in that for the past 7 years. And the past 7 years have been a little bit rocky for me. So I'm really excited to kind of like have a fresh start. Apparently, it is going out of this phase on my birthday. So that's,
Seriously.
yeah,
Wow.
on April 25th. So I'm not a huge astrology person, but I was curious because I wanted to read into it and kind of
Yeah.
see what the year had in store for me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing because I feel like the past 3 years have been super rocky for me. And the fact that I was the end of 2025, I'm starting a new job and I have all these amazing opportunities and I just feel so secure in all my friendships. And I feel like my life is finally, I'm feeling at ease and I feel like I have a lot of amazing opportunities looking forward. So I'm super excited about this year. I think this year is going to be my best year yet. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I'm manifesting good vibes.
Yes, you are showing good vibes, and I love that. And I'm excited to follow you this year and hear about all the great things you're creating professionally and all the fun you're having personally. So we always close with hope. So Katie, what gives you hope?
I think what gives me hope is like my life right now. Like I was so down in the dumps when I graduated and I wasn't finding a job. And even when I moved to New York, and it took me a year and a half to secure a full time job with the salary and benefits. And I was putting in all this effort and, I was getting these contractor roles, but I wasn't getting a full time job in this job market. I'm like, when is it something wrong with me? Like, when am I going to land my full time role? And I feel like, one, not stressing about it as much, and two, just like, I don't know, just really working hard at it and being intentional, like I said, like where I am now, like that's just kind of an example of like, you got to believe in yourself. Like, you can't doubt yourself. You have to put in that good energy because bad energy clearly will not, what's the word? If you put in bad vibes, it may manifest itself in bad vibes. So I would say, just kind of like my experience, like you just kind of have to see the journey through. Like everyone has their own journey and their own timeline, and it's going to look different for everyone. I was here and looking at my friends and people I graduated college with and seeing them on year 2 of their full-time jobs, and I was just getting really down in the dumps and very anxious about what my career trajectory was going to look like. And it took me a minute, but honestly, it paid off. And I'm in a role that I am so happy about. I love the people I work with. And it's just a really great environment to work at, great benefits. So everything happens for a reason. There was a lot of up and downs, but I would say, yeah, my career journey is what gives me hope. So just kind of the process I went through, and that, it might seem bad in the moment, but there's always light at the end of the tunnel, for sure. The
There's a
hard work will pay off.
Yeah, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and your job is not your identity. And when you're early in your career, it takes a while to try things and figure out what you love, and go for that. So thank you so much, Katie. You are
Thanks for
such
having me.
a bright light of Gen Z. You gave such relatable, actionable advice, kept it real, shared the bits of struggle and the bits of success. And, you know, you're just a great model because you stuck with it. You were resilient. You believed in yourself. You bet on yourself. You even wrote a presentation to your parents to say, bet on me. And you pulled it off brilliantly. So, what an inspiring story you shared with us today. And thank you so much. I cherish our friendship and I just respect you so much. I think you're an amazing leader of your generation. So,
Well, thank you
thank
for
you.
having me. It's been just amazing to be able to have you in my corner and just seeing all the amazing things you're doing. And I'm just so excited to be here. We've come full circle.
We've come full circle. All right. So, everyone, stay optimistic. Remember to practice the self care. Take care of yourself. And remember, there is a bright light that awaits you. You're important. We need you.